Airbnbs have two problems that all the people that talk about how much money they make with them don't bring up. They have three problems that people don't bring up.
Hey, Merry Christmas, and under the Christmas tree, Dave Ramsey has some Airbnb advice for you. Is he qualified? Does he know what he's talking about? I'm gonna go ahead and address that head on today here on the Fearless Investor channel. Make sure that you comment down below. I wanna know if you think his advice, my advice, which one is right, and also if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so that you can get all of our content at any time. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome in, and I want to just talk about really quickly, Dave Ramsey, if he has any Airbnbs, I don't know about them, but I'm willing to bet that he's never managed any himself. Meanwhile, I am a professional operator of 70 Airbnbs in 3 different markets, and so there's some things that he says that, I think he's speaking from a place of maybe he thinks he has an idea about it, but we really want to talk about the actual facts here. And so I've always been a believer, by the way, that Dave Ramsey has really good advice for those of you that just want to live a debt-free life. But for those of you that are on this channel, you probably want to invest, you probably want to own assets, you probably want to build your net worth. And for that reason, I don't really like most of the advice that he's given. And especially when he starts jumping into the Airbnb side of things, there's just a lot of misconceptions that he's kind of generalizing. So for that reason, let's go ahead and attack these head on. Let's talk about the first issue that he has with Airbnbs.
A lot of work involved in getting the people in, getting them out, getting them cleaned, all that kind of stuff. Probably 25x a normal rental, because you'll have multiple renters in a single month, right? And so you've got maid service, you've got a higher level of maintenance, you've got a lot of work involved in managing and messing with them. Okay, so a lot of hassle.
So this is actually the first bit of advice that I'm going to agree with Dave, and that is it's just too much work. And so what he's talking about here in regards to all the vendors and all the cleaners, and you got to price it, you got to manage it. Yes, it is a lot of work, but 90% of people will only get 2 or 3 or 4 Airbnbs and they'll stop and they'll say, I can't even imagine adding one more. This is a full-time job. And that's the issue, is that they're being operators in their own business rather than CEOs of their own business. I can operate 70 Airbnbs every single month with just 3 to 5 hours a week. Why? Because we make enough money to pay for a really great team, and that really great team has a set system that they're following in order to get 5-star reviews, in order to increase prices, in order to make a profit, in order to be able to make sure that the cleaners are doing their job, in order to make sure that all the people are doing the things to give these guests amazing experiences. You can't do that when you only have one Airbnb. So for this reason, I actually think his advice is good to David, that he should not be looking to operate it himself or to have his family do it. However, David could go and look for a great manager, someone like myself. I'm not in David's area, but if I was, I might be able to provide that service for David and say, hey, I have all the properties, I have all the team, I'll do this for you. And yes, you could potentially make still more as a short-term rental, even after paying me to operate it instead of you having to do this yourself. All right, the second piece of advice that Dave has for you is actually quite wrong.
Problem number 2 with Airbnbs is you have a lot of extra maintenance. People tear the crap out of your property. Nobody talks about that. That's the dirty little secret of Airbnbs. You're constantly buying carpet. You're constantly buying paint and drywall repair because they do not take it. I don't care how big a deposit you get or how much screening you do. It's not their house. And so you're going to have a high level of repairs and maintenance, which is part of that hassle factor.
All right, here's how I want to approach this. First of all, 70 properties, we've never had to replace carpet. We've had to clean some carpets, yes, but we've never had to replace carpet. We've had to maybe do a little bit of drywall work. But here's the great thing about short-term rentals is that if you have the right setup, Airbnb, VRBO, they have guarantees that they will give you money back for any damage, all right? So we've been paid back for 95% of things and this damage that we've ever had. If you have direct bookings, if you have your own direct booking website, you're going to be able to collect security deposits. You also have other types of technology and softwares and insurance insurance companies out there that will protect you from this. One of my favorite is Safely. Every single guest that walks in, no matter if they're booking with Airbnb, VRBO, or a direct booking website, $1 million guarantee that they will reimburse you for any issues. So this is part of the protection that you have with short-term rentals that Dave just doesn't really know about. So for that reason, you're protected. But also, let me just share a story with you here. I actually just did this on my Instagram, and I talked about how I will never be a long-term landlord ever again. And it's because when you have a short-term rental, how many times are you going in there and checking for these things, right? I could have a 2-day stay 3 times in a week, which means I have a cleaning crew going through there 3 times in a week that's going to clean the property, check for damage, check for any theft, and I'm gonna also have an inspector go in right after that, and they'll be able to give a second pair of eyes on the property. When do you see that in a long-term property? You don't. So here's a story. We actually had a long-term tenant. He was not paying rent. We threatened to evict him. He continued to not pay rent. We started the eviction process. As soon as he found out he was gonna get evicted, he said, if I can't live here, no one can live here. He started sending us videos of him taking a jackhammer to the house and destroying the house. He eventually, the day before the eviction, decided, I'm gonna light this thing on fire. And he lit the whole thing on fire into the ground. Guys, this is the issue with long-term renters. They also don't treat the place like their own, but they're in there for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and all of that deferred maintenance, who does that go to? That goes to you. Do you wanna have to file a claim with your insurance company for thousands of dollars and then your premiums go up? No. So if you know about this after a 2-day stay, after even just a 30-day stay, don't you think you can control that maintenance and submit a claim to either Airbnb, VRBO, or a insurance company like a Safely, like I discussed? You make your decision. I've already made mine, and a lot of other short-term rental operators have made theirs as well. We don't want to be long-term landlords because we don't want to deal with all of that deferred maintenance.
The third thing that nobody's talking about is several areas are now passing zoning prohibiting it.
Right.
And so if you set your whole model up only on Airbnb, you could have the rug jerked out from under you. If the only way the deal works is Airbnb, don't do the deal because it might not be available to you.
And yes, this third issue is an actual issue, and I do agree with Dave on this, is that if you are only able to make money as a short-term rental, then you should not do the deal. You should definitely make sure that you have at least a long-term rental as a backup. But it's funny because Dave actually sounds a lot like when I talked to my friend Michael Zuber about this a couple years ago. Michael was actually very opposed to short-term rentals a lot like Dave was. And if you don't know Michael's page, you need to go over. He's got one of the biggest real estate YouTube channels out there for one rental at a time. Go check it out. But he told me, hey, if people are doing Airbnb, I think that's ridiculous. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, because at some point the supply is gonna go up and the demand is gonna go down and yada yada. And he kind of gave me all of his reasons. And I said, well, Michael, what if I just want to turn it into a long-term rental after that and make sure it still cash flows as a long-term rental? He said, oh yeah, well, you just need to figure out where the furniture is gonna go. And then I said, well, what if I could do a long-term furnished rental? That would probably be worth a little bit more. He was like, oh yeah, that makes sense too. So that's what I'm talking about here, is that a lot of people say don't do Airbnb. Well, as long as you're making sure that it will cash flow as a long-term rental, then you have that backup plan. So make sure you're doing your due diligence and not going and buying the $6 million mansion that only makes sense as an Airbnb, because that can go away like that.
Whether you're going to do a straight rental or whether you're going to do an Airbnb, because it's in your backyard and you're going to lay your hands on it, and you are a man who controls your destiny. You don't ask your first cousin to do it.
So as you can see, Dave came back at the end here to talk once again about why it needs to be in your own backyard. And all I know, and here's the thing, guys, like, Dave is worth $200 million. I'm worth 1% of that. You can do the math. He makes a lot more money than I do. So choose who you want to take your advice from. I get it. He's got a lot more going on. But what I also know is, of that $200 million, how much does Dave have his hands on those long-term rentals, right? He's probably got a property manager doing that for him as well. So if you can create systems or you can hire a really good management company, why wouldn't you look at this and put this into someone else's hands who is going to either have the time, the motivation, or the experience to go and do it? So once again, don't let this, I've got to have it in my own backyard mindset hold you back from getting started with short-term rentals. rentals. Where there's a will, there's a way, and you can definitely do this from afar. I can just tell you one of my markets is in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm not there, my business partner is. I can tell you that one of our students started from San Jose and he does it now in Fresno, California. That's 4 hours away from him, and he's able to have boots on the ground to be his eyes and be his ears without him having to physically be there. You can do this from afar, you just have to have the right systems or the right people set up in order to do so. So comment, what do you think? Is Dave right? Am I right? Are we both right? Are we both wrong? I wanna know what you think. And of course, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, I wanna keep on learning those systems or how to be able to do this from afar or even how to get started, make sure you go ahead and keep on watching this channel, watch the next video and then the next and then the next, and make sure you're subscribed so you can keep on getting everything for free right here on the Fearless Investor YouTube channel.